We're going to be taking you through the progress of our black comedy feature film.
Who are you, by the way? Nobody knows who we are.
Look at yourself, sir. Realistically, nobody's going to give you that money. Nobody. You don't know who the fuck you are. It's a complete risk. You are unknown.
This is our first feature film, something we're going to do together. You're going to get it warts and all.
For now, you're just some pair of idiots like everyone else.
So we just go into it.
I kind of think we could.
This is DIY Cinema Cult.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm
How
okay.
are you doing? How are you feeling?
How are we feeling? Well, yeah, not too bad, I suppose. Although I hit another year last week, so I'm kind of a year older. And I had
Happy birthday, by the way. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was actually on a shoot, strangely enough, while it was my birthday, and I spent 3 weird, lonely hours on my own after the shoot finished and the crew all left. And I was in this creepy country house, kind of near Bath, and sort of waiting for my family
death.
to come along. Yeah, waiting for death, waiting for the family to come along to kind of greet me and do a happy birthday. But they were really late, so there was just this weird 3 hours on my own, pondering my own mortality. And I thought, oh God, it's not 49 is a little bit bleak. I should be coming out of the U-bend of unhappiness right now, of sort of middle age. I think, have you heard of this idea, the U-bend of happiness or unhappiness?
The U-bend of happiness. No.
So apparently middle age, people getting depressed in their middle age is really a thing, and but there's basically a U-bend, and the pit of that U-bend is about 48. So that was last year. So I should now be on the upward curve of that U-bend. So from here on in, depression shouldn't strike as often. I should accept my lot that little bit more.
I love that idea. I'm looking forward to that. That sounds fantastic.
But you're a few years younger than me, so you're still heading down towards the U-bottom of the U-bend.
Yeah, it fucking feels like it sometimes, I tell you. U-bend of happiness, that sounds like a toilet thing.
Yeah. Well,
I think I had a U-bend of happiness this morning, actually.
It was a very happy U-bend experience. But yeah, so I've been okay. I definitely have had I don't know what it is. It's also the change of the seasons this time of year, with a sort of with the shift towards kind of winter. There's that feeling of like, oh, another year's coming to an end, and all that kind of back to school feeling that you used to get. The seasons changing, and there's a lot of loveliness sides of sort of autumn, but there's also it just reminds me a bit of like, oh, coming to the end of the year. And this has not been a normal year, has it? Let's face it.
No, not at all. I mean, I always find as well that whenever I approach my birthday, and maybe similarly to you, I'm in May, so it's the changing of seasons, which is always very provocative and brings back lots of memories. And I always have quite intense flashbacks on the lead up to my birthday. Yeah.
But I also feel like in some way, it's kind of the fact that our project's not really pushed forward in some way.
I know it's it just makes the whole pandemic makes locking in. Our film depends on a real kick-ass location, very specific location as well.
Of which there are probably tons empty at the moment, but we just couldn't put anybody in it. That's the thing. Problem is when you're doing things on a shoestring, you're not paying people, and you aren't also able to go hell for leather with all the guidelines that you need to do, because you need a COVID officer, and that person needs to be trained, and you've got to have PPE, and you've got to make sure everybody is has hand washing and all the rest of it. So you kind of need a bit of infrastructure in place to make sure you can do it, and to do that on a shoestring and with asking lots of favors is where I think, the idea of the film is going to find some challenges. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And also it just feels very far away at the moment in terms of having crews together, because I don't know about you, but I'm becoming more and more of a hermit day by day. I do all my work virtually, through kind of screens. I'll have a Zoom meeting in the morning, and then all my other work is kind of sent via internet, and I'm just sat. And also I'm kind of sat on a desk right by my bed.
Yeah.
So I don't, my footprint of where I go during one day isn't very large. I get up and go for a run in the mornings, but I'm kind of living this quite locked away life, and it's just become normalized, this kind of existence where you just kind of hide away, and things just tick over. And just the idea of those days where you kind of get a big gang of people together, have a crew and do a shoot, it seems like a real stretch for me in my mind. I know it isn't, but it just, I guess it feels so distant from my current situation.
Well, so what do we do? What can we do instead? Because I think we've been concerned, haven't we? We've been thinking about this.
Yeah, well, I started looking back to our old, when we started this podcast, we had ideas in our head that we should kind of solidify some of the ideas into like a manifesto, and I found some of the old ones we'd written down.
Oh, let's have a listen.
Number one was never wait for permission, which was this kind of just start mentality, which is fantastic, which I think is absolutely true.
Yep.
The second one I've got written down here is weaponize your limitations. So whatever's limiting you making your film, rather than being a roadblock, make them the reason why you make the film. So say if you're saying, look, I can't make a film because the only free time I have is one afternoon every Sunday of the month. Right. Well, that becomes that's your film. You make a film, for that amount of time, and forever how long it takes, that becomes your form. And also you can then weaponize it in terms of that's the story of your film once it's made. I'm the guy who made the film, and shot for 1 hour every Sunday for a month, blah blah blah. So so that was one. Then there was another one that was, this sounds a bit weird. Well, it doesn't sound weird, but it sounds a bit airy fairy. Love and respect your cast and crew. They are your family.
Oh, that's nice.
We can kind of rewrite that to sound a bit more cool, but essentially the idea was
it. Look after people.
Yeah, exactly. So it's looking after people as much as, don't go into a project with only your own personal gain, and remember that if people are jumping on your project, you want people who love your project and will give everything to it. For that reason, you should completely respect them and make sure they benefit as much as possible from the project. Use what you have access to and tailor your story to those items. So that's that kind of Robert Rodriguez thing we were talking about. And then there was one that I've written down from things we were saying really early on when we were looking at alternative distribution and stuff, and we were kind of saying always seek the alternative, as in maybe there's other ways to do things. Making a film, there's lots of conventions and tried and tested paths that people take, but maybe they're, with new technology, with new systems, maybe there's alternative routes that you could take that could make a film for much cheaper. And that's a possibility too. So when I look back on those, I was kind of really struck that, they all sound great. And there's a kind of formula building there and a kind of ethos. And maybe we'd kind of not been really taking those, 100% to heart with routine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, never wait for permission, fantastic. But in a sense, we were kind of going, right, we need someone to say yes and give us a location, or allow us into a place that's perfect. And
well, because it's so location specific and in a way cast specific, the kind of permission that we'd be waiting for would be either the resources to get those people all in the same place, or a kind of a mad piece of luck. And all of those things, in a way, are out of our hands. And so we don't have resources, and we would be pulling in favors for anything. So, and at the moment, we have an extra restriction with physical distancing, etc. So, so we, in a way, it's like, well, is the idea just not going to work in that specific circumstance? It's not going to fit that one of our manifesto.
I mean, to tell the story in the way that we want to tell it, to make routine in the way we want to make it, we would have to. It would be a stretch because it wouldn't really be us weaponizing our limitations. Say it would mean that we'd have to work very hard to get specific locations
to overcome them. Yeah.
You are listening to the debut feature film podcast. This is DIY Cinema Cult.
And what I did was I kind of went back and I looked at Chris Nolan's first film, after we were talking a lot about Tenet last episode.
Yeah.
And I went back to his film Following, which he made he completed in 1998.
Was it like a film school? Did he do it when he was at film school or something?
He never went to film school, so he just did it in his own time with friends.
Yeah.
They shot it for about it says $6,000, so I guess maybe like 4,000-5,000.
I seem to remember there's lots of shots of him walking around Soho, and it's Super 16 or black and white and it's
Super 16,
very kind of old school.
It's a really interesting film because it was a script that he completely tailored for low budget.
Yeah.
The way he produced the film, the way they shot the film, they were shooting at weekends pretty much because everyone had jobs. And so it was shot over, I think it said it took a year to make and it took 4 months to shoot, just because they were just having to grab bits whenever they could. And if you look at it as well, like the locations they use are clearly their flats, their friends' flats, their parents' house. There's a bar in there which they've obviously got. Maybe they had a mate who worked in the bar, and none of the locations are perfect. They don't look that great, but they're there out of necessity, and that's why they're being used. Even to the point where there's a scene in a cafe where the protagonist, he kind of like meets this guy who's been following. He finally gets the tables turned on him, and the guy who's following turns around and says, "Look, why are you following me?" And that kind of sparks off the story. And the cafe that this happens in is actually the canteen in the reception of Frame Store. You know the post-production house in there.
In Soho. Yeah.
So either Chris Nolan or one of his friends was working in Frame Store, I presume. So it was, they just got it at the weekend, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a cafe at all. It's just a little bar at the end of one end of the reception. Yeah. And even to the point that it's got frosted on the windows, clearly in the shots of the film, Frame Store on the side. It's not great. It's not ideal, but it's what they had, and it's what they had to settle for.
Yeah.
And did very, very well for him. I kind of watching it, I just thought maybe it is just a switch in that mentality. And as much as I hate to say that Hadi was absolutely right when he gave us that bollocking back in episode 6, maybe it's a slight gear change and just a reality check and say, look, if we really want to make a film now, right now, maybe there's some adjustments that need to be made.
Yeah. And I mean, we in a way, we were sort of moving away from routine a little bit. And we were thinking about the old man, of course, but then that still has us potentially traveling somewhere, locations. In a way, it's a kind of a road movie. So, again, these things aren't impossible, but they kind of mean things that they are still outside of what we have. So we are still having to find these things. So what do we think? I mean, are we thinking really that we need a new idea that could work within the confines of what we actually have, or work, in lockdown, literally work within, the fact that we're stuck inside, staring at a screen for much of the day? What are you thinking?
I remember that I had this script that I was writing before Routine. And it was called Stutter, and it's all about this girl who has a stutter. She finds this kind of weird hypnotist therapist guy online. He cures her of the stutter, but she starts to have these weird visuals and flashbacks. Realize that she's been taken advantage of by this hypnotist while under. She blackmails him, threatens to blackmail him unless he shows her how he does what he does. He has this very strange blend of kind of hypnotherapies that he uses. He's a bit of a kind of snake oil salesman, really, when it comes to he's a bit dark. The fact that he's just been found off the internet, it's not he's not 100% kosher. And he ends up teaching her these kind of techniques, and she becomes the controller then in her relationships, and goes a bit off the tracks, and then kind of has to return and correct herself by the end of the film. And it was this kind of story about control and hypnosis and blah blah blah. And then I kind of put the script to one side when I started to write Routine, and then after watching I was watching a couple of documentaries recently about social media, like The Great Hack and Social Dilemma and things like that. Yeah. And I thought, what if we go deeper into this idea that she found this guy through the internet, or he was some kind of guru that she found through social media, and then maybe his kind of control over her is a kind of comment on social media control of people. And the fact that she has a stutter. She's at the start of the film, she's very alienated and she's quite isolated, which we are all feeling at the moment. So I thought it'd be great for her to have a job that is very much like what we're doing now. It's kind of working remotely, working through the internet. So in a way, she's quite isolated and kind of trapped in this little bubble. But then through this kind of therapist, she starts to open up, but not necessarily in a great way. But it's quite a lot to do about, there's lots of things in there thematically about memory and perception. So the fact that there's this kind of concept there, the idea of the hypnosis, means that we can have a lot of fun visually with what we see and what we show. And also, you know, as a strong concept, it means that we have a hook there that isn't necessarily reliant on us having a budget. You know, we'd have to show physical certain things. It's very suggestive, and it's kind of, it's suggested rather than shown. So I thought what I thought I might do is rewrite that script that I had from this couple of years old now, but rewrite it and tailor it completely for us shooting ourselves in our locations, in our flats, or in the locations that we can grab fairly easily, and also write it as an 80-page script, no more. So it just feels really contained and doable, and seeing what we could make from that. So maybe this is the first, something like that could possibly be the first step. Yeah, and something that we could shoot quite quickly. We could say, right, what have we got? Have we got $3,000? Right, maybe this is a feature film we shoot for $3,000 in 2 weeks or something like that, and then that becomes the story. Like weaponize your limitations. That becomes the story of this film. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's got a lot of potential. And I mean, you kind of mentioned the idea. We kind of bounced a couple of emails around, didn't we? And it felt to me like it was quite akin. The character that perhaps she meets is quite akin to a few of these sort of Instagram internet gurus that seem to be popping up. And you kind of think, in comparison to 60s, 70s, and 80s, where people were lured into the Moonies or the Scientologists or whatever by, I wandered into this strange shop on Tottenham Court Road and somebody sort of gave me this book, and then I went to a meeting, and then now, actually, where are people being manipulated? We know for sure politically it's through social media and through advertising. We're being manipulated all the time. Through Instagram and Facebook, etc. And I'm wondering as well about that sort of self-help angle, that kind of make yourself better, kind of enhance your personality, kind of recreate yourself, but with through the sort of filter of a screen, because like you say, this is our reality, and the world that you describe as the sort of in the first incarnation perhaps has changed even in the last 2-3 years since you wrote that script. So I think sort of adapting to that reality seems sort of sensible, and it does feel very of the moment, because my goodness, are we all at the will of whatever happens in this rectangle in front of us, and the things that come on there, and the places we find ourselves, and the things that the algorithm suggests that we look at next. And you could imagine there's a whole interesting side to that, and the some kind of awareness of human psychology, frailty, and then perception shift as a result of sort of distorted reality that we all experience sat online. So it's got a lot of interesting aspects, I think.
Yeah, because when I first wrote it, it was the kind of interactive social media technology side of it wasn't really, it was quite thin. It wasn't really important to the story and the plot. But she did kind of have this. She kind of heard about him, and then it was an app basically that she downloads, and then through the app she communicates with him and what have you. But then, just in the light of everything that's happened, you're quite right. In those, I think it's a couple of years since I wrote that script, things have changed so much that I thought, right, we could really amp this up and turn this into a story about the technology that we have every day and its influence on us. And it's almost, I can almost see it having this kind of feeling of almost like a folk horror, that kind of genre that we talk about quite a lot, and we love so much. But instead of but it's a technology based folk horror. It's a kind of a modern version of a folk horror where the thing that is threatening and disturbing this woman's life is something that we use every day, but actually does. We don't have to convince people that this technology we communicate with each other with every day has a sinister start, has a dark side. It really does have a dark side. We know that already. We're kind of compliant in the fact that we know that. So it's not a massive leap, but it is a film that kind of takes that worry and fear about the internet and about technology and makes it quite personal. This girl is getting twisted and affected by it.
We're making a movie. It's so beautiful. Make it together. We're making a movie, man. We'll make it with love. I'm so happy. Join me, man. We're making a movie. We're making a movie with love. This is amazing. Come together, everybody. Bring out your family and all your children, man. It's gonna be beautiful.
I've started writing it, so hopefully I should have something fairly soon. But I'm quite into this idea of perception and our reality as we think we see it or as we perceive it it's just our brain's best estimation of what is actually going on in the real world. So everything we see in here is our brain's simulation of what our brain thinks reality is like and what's going on. So everything we see outside that we perceive to be outside of us is all in our minds. And so it plays with that idea quite a lot in the script.
Well, in a weird way, because it's sort of a Buddhist concept, isn't it? The concept of Maya and sort of the fact that we have a veil of illusion in front of us. In a weird way, the internet and the digital world that we live in now is almost like an externalization of that. Beforehand, it was the case that we had this kind of layer of I suppose fantasy sort of over of what reality was like over us. Now it's become hard, and it is now shaped with a slight beveled edge. It is a rectangle. It's amazing, and that we project ourselves into that world, knowing that in some way we are creating an illusion. So it's like an illusion on top of an already established illusion in some way, isn't it?
My boy Elfie brought round his VR headset.
Oh gosh,
For his birthday, he got bought a virtual reality headset.
So which type is it? Because I know there's a few different types. I'm such a dinosaur.
It's called Oculus.
Oculus Rift.
Oculus. And it is absolutely fantastic. And I've experienced VR before, but this, even this one that is now very affordable, you can buy your own VR headset and have it in your home. It's just so advanced now, VR. And for example, I put the headset on, and the waiting room, the kind of holding room that you find yourself in when you first go in, it's like some beautiful palatial apartment in the Hollywood Hills, it looks like, or somewhere, and you instantly have this feeling that you are on holiday. You have endorphins released, you start to relax, you start to look at the beautiful sky and the birds flying past, and you have this kind of overwhelming kind of feeling of peace and relaxation, and then you choose where you want to go. And I was kind of amazed by the fact that how easy it is that your brain is tricked into thinking that this is now reality. Say if something gets too close to your head, you duck. If you pick something up with your hands, you believe you can feel the texture of it, and then say you can't, but your brain's kind of filling in the gaps. And it's amazing how quickly your brain fills in those other, it kind of fills in the dots. If you float through the air, you feel like you're lighter, you're floating, and it's just incredible. And it made me think that, like we're saying, this idea of perception, maybe it is that the reason, because then I started thinking, well, the brain's very sophisticated. Why can't it tell that I'm looking at a TV screen? I can feel that he's got a thing on his head. This isn't real. So then I'm not going to be tricked by it. But your brain is. And I was wondering whether it's because your brain knows that that's what your brain does. It deals in simulations or fabrications of reality in order to get you from A to B. So the fact that you're replacing your reality with another simulated reality does make a difference, does it? Your brain just goes, right, well, this is reality.
Well, the fact is that all art forms that have kind of come before VR, obviously VR is the most sophisticated in terms of immersing you in that space and needs less imagination than almost all art forms previous, storytelling art forms or whatever. I mean, all of them in some ways require you to take some sort of leap of faith, don't they? So, cinema, when it first came out, people in the cinema were, and the classic train coming towards the screen, people were running out of the cinema. But of course, we quickly become sophisticated in our awareness of it as a medium, but we still like the immersion in it. So of course, cinema's full of loads of cheats. The cut. I mean, I've got the classic text here in the blink of an eye. The Walter Murch just sat in front of me, the cut is obviously an artificial experience for a human being, although Walter Murch describes it as akin to a very quick head movement or the blink or what have you. So that he says a cut works because effectively it's your attention being on one thing and then your attention being on another thing. So we forgive the fact that there isn't continuity between that one shot and the next shot with a whip pan or with a move or anything. But we forgive it because in a way we allow ourselves to be swallowed up by it. And even before cinema, obviously on the stage, when you saw a play, we know that it's just some people in front of us and they're dressed up and there's a set, and that's fine. But we still get absorbed by the narrative. We still get absorbed by the story. And yes, it takes a little bit more of our imagination. But I still wonder, and I don't know what you think, and maybe, playing around with LV's Oculus Rift will give you an idea, but is there a space for narrative filmmaking in that world? Because so much about narrative filmmaking is the author, the editor, the director, the whatever, guiding you down a specific sequence of images. And we've talked a little bit about this before, but when you've got the potential to look anywhere you want, where is the storytelling?
I don't know. It's a troublesome idea, isn't it? You're not quite sure. I mean, in a way, it's more of once you kind of put those on and you play with it a little bit, and then I was watching LV playing with it myself. It's not such a leap to imagine a world where it's all like Ready Player One, and that's how people will live a lot of their life in this kind of virtual landscape. And it's all about like watching narrative film. LV was telling me, there's places there's virtual places where you can go and watch films, and it looks like you're watching a massive screen. So there's still the idea of a cinema screen, but you're just in a virtual space watching it, and it's almost like a pay-per-view idea where you can watch the latest film, and it looks like you're sat in a theater, but it's completely virtual. So you're kind of going to the cinema in a virtual.
Well, that's almost the only
world.
place that we'd be getting to go to the cinema at the moment. Isn't it bizarre? I don't know if you have ever experienced lucid dreams. Have you ever had a lucid dream where you're sort of aware that you're dreaming in some senses?
Yeah.
So I mean, I've used to have a lot, and occasionally still get them now. In a way, there's a sort of moment. If you think about normal dreams, you sort of in some way passively experience the story of that dream, and it can be quite traumatic. And it can be quite, exciting, or it can be just very confusing and odd. And so you may experience a dream either in the first person or the third person. And there's a lot of, where I think cinema was the birth of sort of cinema in a way. I think is, but I would argue that in some way it was trying to recreate a dream experience for us, but it was also built upon, drama and narrative and theatre, but I wonder whether the sort of the lucid dream, where suddenly you're aware you're dreaming and you can make a decision. Well, actually, I know I'm dreaming now, and this is always sort of happens to me. Oh, hang on a minute, I'm dreaming, and the first thing I generally choose to do is, well, that means I can fly. So I'll start flying, and that generally is what happens. Yeah. And I think in a way the lucid dream's almost more akin to the VR experience or the computer game experience. Yeah. Although in a way the computer game is probably still more limited because you have this amazing feeling of the lucid dream where you can conjure things up in front of you that you just thought, often the lucid experience isn't 100%, as in you're lucid for some of it and it will slip a little bit, and then you go, oh, hang on a minute, I'm dreaming, so this bad thing that started to happen, I can change it, or I can just switch it off, right?
Yeah, the VR thing was very reminiscent of lucid dreaming and dreaming generally, because once you took the headset off, you felt like you had been very much in another place. Very much like when you wake from a dream. That was my experience. But funny enough, talking about lucid dreaming, I had a kind of a funny experience in a lucid dream a couple of years ago, in that I became, as you do in lucid dreams, you kind of suddenly become aware. Yeah. You kind of go, hang on, I get it. I'm in a dream, right?
I know Kung Fu.
And I know Kung Fu.
It's very The Matrix.
And I was kind of looking around, kind of going, oh, right, okay, this is a dream. This is nice. And very much like I was in the VR, I was kind of enjoying the landscapes. And I was like, oh, this is nice. Look, there's the sky and there's a building and da-da-da. And there was a newspaper sat on the table next to me. And I said, well, what's the kind of detail in this lucid dream? Yeah. Thinking, like, if I pick up this newspaper, can I read it?
Yeah.
And so I picked up a newspaper, and there was an article on it, and it almost hurt my eyes because I was just trying to focus so much.
It's often hard to read in dreams, though, isn't it? It's a hard.
Yeah, and there was these words kind of coming into focus and then dropping away again. I was really just, all my concentration was going into, I want to be able to read this article. I was basically wanting to test the complexity of my lucid dream. Was it going to go down in such microcosmic detail?
Of your own simulation.
And it almost got there and then kind of dropped away. And I was like, I think it dropped away into just kind of like blocks. Yeah. And it was almost seeing the kind of, it's like, again, this kind of comparison to computer graphics. Yeah. It was that kind of, the designer of the computer game thought, we're not going to have to go into the detail of putting anything on the newspaper.
Paper. No idiot's ever going to read that.
No, he'll just walk past that. And
he's going to kill something over there. He's got some gold over there. He wants to fly.
But the fact that, and it always makes me giggle, the fact that I picked up this paper and I was like, come on, let's see what you got, lucid dream. Can I read this paper? And I just couldn't.
Well, it's also, you're saying to your own subconscious in some way, come on, how clever am I, you know? Well, I've certainly had, you know, one particularly mind-blowing lucid dream, kind of, you know, one not so long ago, about a year ago, and one when I remember when I was at college and I was doing drama at college. So and I was writing and I was doing a lot of, you know, stories, sort of thinking about story and everything. And the kind of stories that I was into when I was at college was very meta. So it was very much, you know, so I suppose that sort of postmodern awareness of stories within stories and all of that kind of stuff. So the one I had at college was, you know, it was properly all the way out there. I was suddenly, it was, you know, Christopher Nolan, eat your heart out. If I could put it on the screen through some kind of, you know, mind to screen transference, it would be killer. But it was basically, I was suddenly aware that I was in a dream, and all of the other characters that I was meeting in this dream were me. Because of course they were, right. And then I would go up to some of the characters and say, "Well, but you are actually me because I'm dreaming, and I've just created you as a character." And they would.
It was a bit Malkovich.
It really was, and they would say to me, "Yeah, now you're starting to understand." And I'd be like, oh my God. So I literally blew my own mind from the inside. And there were loads of moments where I would see myself going, you know, walking down a road, which had been a moment in the dream earlier where I was in the first person. So there were moments where I jumped from the first to the third person. So, wow. I mean, it was one of those really... you know, memorable dreams. And I think I even tried to make a kind of film / theatre performance out of it at college, but with sort of Super 8 and slides, it didn't really come across quite as well as
I would have loved to have seen that.
Well, I think it wouldn't have been as memorable as the experience itself. But
yeah, I remember having a dream once where I dreamt I went to live on an island in Thailand or somewhere for a year, and then it was talking about Nolan-esque dreams. Yeah. It was a dream that felt like it was playing out in real time. It wasn't edited or it wasn't a montage in any way. And I went and I got a job on the island and I settled in and I started meeting the locals and they became my friends and I settled in and I started to feel like a local. And then I met this girl and we started going out. We started having a relationship.
You had sex in the dream though, didn't you? You had sex.
Yeah, we had sex in the dream, and then we split up after a couple of months, maybe. And then she started going out with this other guy who I know from the area, and it was all a bit like, no, you know, the thing. Oh no, my ex-girlfriend's now going out with that guy who was my friend, and it was all weird. And I remember I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to London now. I feel like I've been
in the dream. You decided this in some way,
and I woke up back in London, and I had just a very real sensation that I'd left the country for at least 6 months. And in my head, I had this whole piece of life that I'd lived mapped out, and I had all the memory of it all.
Oh my God.
And it was in my it was implanted in my mind as not as if it had been a dream, but it felt like the timeline went way back. For a substantial amount of time.
It's all very Christopher Nolan, isn't it? I do know that he is he's a lucid dreamer as well, and he's talked about it in a podcast that I listened to, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. And it does sort of feel like, I mean, certainly Inception feels like that it would be informed by that as a sort of story idea, you know, that you would be self-aware in the dream and in some way you could manipulate the dream's outcome. And that, and also obviously the concept of sort of time being very different in the dream space. But, you know, like you said, you had 6 months in your dream and then you woke up and you were, it was just, you know, probably in that last hour of your actual sleep, because this is the other thing, amazing thing I read about lucid dreams, and is that generally they happen at that last little bit of sleep, and they are I mean, this is only something I've read, but if you wake up sort of early in the middle of the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then you don't go back to sleep, often you feel a bit ratty and grumpy, not necessarily just because you're tired, but because you didn't get the last bit of sleep that you need, which is a special kind of sleep.
Yeah.
And that special kind of sleep is there to resolve problems, apparently. So, all these things are speculations generally. But so that last little bit of sleep, often where the lucid dreams come, is where you resolve a lot of your emotional issues and problems. And so the lucid dream part of that makes a lot of sense. As in, well, it's kind of you're active in the dream in some way. And as a result of that, you can imagine that, if you're able to sort of kind of resolve things and be conscious of resolving those things, it would feel like you were more in control of your problems in some way.
Yeah, it's like Charlie Kaufman's another filmmaker I find is kind of very in tune with dream states. And a lot of his films play out like memories and dreams, and they follow dream logic, don't they, quite a lot, which kind of frustrates a lot of people I know. But I always think you should always watch his films as if you are experiencing a dream or a memory. They're not going to make sense logically necessarily, but they are very accurate when it comes to how you experience weird narratives, characters and feelings in a dream state.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, our other favourites, Louis Buñuel and David Lynch, are sort of masters of the kind of dream logic, and in some ways defying the logical sequence that we would normally attribute to sort of narrative, by just putting the surprising contrast that you have from one moment to another that often happens in a dream.
All this talk about stories and dreams, it's our thing last time wasn't that much of a success, was it? Our automatic plot generator.
No, I mean, weirdly, a computer could probably come up with kind of an accidental dream logic in some ways, because it's sort of the disconnect between one scene and another. But it was... I
mean, Alison Giant Bulb, the granddad eating lion, was kind of dream logic, I thought, maybe.
It was sort of nightmare logic, that's for sure. The best example, I was going to mention the best example of dream logic that I have ever sort of experienced. I mean, obviously, we love Lynch and Buñuel, and like you say, Charlie Kaufman sort of does a good job of that kind of thing. And in a way, these things are great antidotes to the perfectly formed 3-act kind of film. But the one book that I think is a great example, and I seem to remember reading it on holiday, and it was one of those things that transported me to so many different places. It was a book called The Unconsoled by Ishiguro. So Ishiguro wrote The Remains of the Day, so sort of British-based but Japanese heritage writer, very well known. And the Unconsoled is so weird in its experience, because it has that exact feeling of being in a dream. A kind of person arrives in a foreign country, and he has a bunch of appointments that he can't quite remember why he has the appointments, and he meets people, and he discovers his own son that he didn't realize he had, and then he discovers the mother of his son, and he can't really remember having had a relationship with, but he kind of goes with it. And it's this kind of this sequence of events that just are stranger and stranger and stranger, but it's the protagonist's reaction to all this strangeness, which is so dreamlike. Which is that rather than where a normal narrative where somebody's thrown into an unusual situation, this is the antagonist to their whatever. they get surprised, angry, upset. It shows their fatal flaw, all this kind of, film school stuff. In The Unconsoled, he doesn't. He kind of goes with it, and it's just weird because he accepts all the things that happen to him. Sometimes they're quite dark, sometimes they're quite unusual, but he kind of goes along with it. And I think Buñuel does a brilliant job of that in Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, and that in that you're in the, they're trying to have this meal, this group of friends are constantly trying to have this meal. It's constantly interrupted by madder and madder things. It kind of upsets them, but they just sort of go on to the next thing. And so in loads of ways, I think there's something to be learned that takes us beyond the film school 3-act, 5-act structure that is a deep magic that maybe we experience in dreams, and the lucid dream being even almost a heightened level of that.
I mean, like we said before in earlier podcasts, cinema, films is the closest thing we have to our dreams, isn't it? It's a very, very similar experience, like we said with Prano, didn't we? And of course, we should probably say, like, if anyone listening to this wants to listen back to some old interviews that we've got, past interviews, we've had some great interviews with directors like Prano Bailey Bond, Marc A.C. Brown, David Cecil, Jamie Ross Hume. So go back to our past catalogue of super hits.
It's we're racking up quite a selection of fantastic DIY filmmakers.
You are listening to DIY Cinema Cult.
And in some ways, the events of the past 5-6 years probably, but certainly the last year, have been more bizarre, more dreamlike, more fantastical than any other era. So in a way, realism doesn't cut it anymore. We've got to go deep into this.
We've got to go deeper.
Yeah,
we've got to go.
I think it's almost the only way. So I think we're probably along the right tracks here. So
all right, mate. Well, I got to put little Bubba to bed.
Nice one. That was good.
All right,
unexpectedly deep and psychedelic.
Yeah, I liked it. We're going deep into this.
Bye-bye, darling.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, lovely.
Love you.
Sweet dreams. May you be aware of your dreams.
Lucid dreams. And read the small print in your lucid dreams. Pick up a paper. Have a read. Imagine if I picked up the paper and it was just a pair of tits. That's probably would have. That's why
it blocked it out. It was like, you don't want to see how embarrassing your own subconscious is.
All right, mate. Lovely chatting. I'll speak
Cheers,
to you
mate.
soon.
See you later.
Bye, listeners.
Bye, listeners.
Follow us on Twitter at DIY Cinema Cult, or on Instagram we are DIY_cinema_cult. Seek out the DIY Cinema Cult group on Facebook, or why not email us at DIYcinemacult@gmail.com.